And where's my share screen now? Come on. There we go. Okay, so we left off last week, I believe, going through this SSDF example. And I believe we had 3 different levels of hierarchy, if I remember correctly. And we were able to represent the 3 levels of hierarchy. And we were talking about signatures. Is signatures where we left off? Does anybody remember? What is it that we actually want to sign?
Sounds right.
Okay. So let's go up at the top here.
Yeah, I think we just wanted to verify that, you know, if people added things over different time periods, if they could sign individual claims and counterclaims. I think that's where we left off, as well as being able to re-sign the entire document.
Right. So let's take a look at the standards. Let's just go through this real quick. So the standards themselves can be signed. So there's a standard, and that's the signature for that standard. The attestation, so an individual attestation can be signed. An individual claim can be signed. An individual piece of evidence can be signed. And yeah, that's it. Is there anything that we're missing or anything that shouldn't be there?
So by that we are saying
like
each of these pieces can be an independent document, like claim can be an independent document, evidence can be an independent document.
No, they're not necessarily designed for that. I mean, Cyclone supports inline signatures. So we support JSON signature format and of course XML signature. So both of those are envelope signing.
Okay.
So you could theoretically have a single attestation document with different signatures from different people in your organization. That's a perfectly valid use case.
Right.
And I think that will probably be a common use case, right? Because like if you stepping away from the SSDF for a minute, if we go back to that thing on that example of do your developers have yearly security education? That might be a different person making that claim versus do you have a PCERT function, right? Those might be 2 entirely different people in the organizations making those claims and signing those claims, all ending up in the same document. Okay. Now, I've got a few different question marks here and there. Looks like Jeff is rejoining. One Jeff is not enough. We need multiple Jeffs.
I apologize for that. I switched. I'm at
No
the
worries.
Gartner security event in DC, and
Oh, nice.
connections are terrible.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a way to so like I imagine when people sign things, they're going to want to sign a bunch of these things at once. And like it, so I imagine like the first time you produce one of these things, maybe you're doing a self assessment and you assess yourself against a whole bunch of requirements, and you provide a bunch of evidence, and you just want to assign that and say like, hey, I just everything in that bit, I just attest to that. And then somebody else might look at it, like an auditor might come in and go like, and like review that and go like, well, I think these couple of counterclaims, I want to make that and provide some evidence, and I'll sign that. Like, I'll sign on to all these other things that I approve of, and then except for these two things that I got counterclaims on. Like, instead of having to go sign each one of these individual things, which is going to be really bulky. I don't know. I mean, it feels like you do a bunch of these in chunks to me.
I don't know, I kind of feel the other side of it, which is because multiple people are going to be doing different pieces of this, you're going to have probably multiple documents, CycloneDX documents you're going to be combining. And so if you have some that are an overarching signature and you have others that are a portion of it, it's going to be really hard to merge those together. I think there's going to be a single document that's passed around, or everyone's working on it directly in a single spot.
I almost always hate digital signatures for that reason. Like,
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I mean, we could certainly decouple. We could use like external references for the evidence. You could have multiple pieces of evidence, I guess, multiple claims.
but it's sort of a fair point. Like, what are you signing then? You're just signing the
the
index,
problem,
and all the pieces of it are external somewhere.
exactly. I mean, the problem with externalizing a lot of this stuff, I mean, it's great to externalize the standards versus,
Mhm.
claims and the evidence and the attestations. Good to externalize the standards themselves, but I think too much externalization becomes really problematic when it goes to actually consumption, right? How do you consume something where you don't have all the pieces?
Right.
Um,
Well, I guess I'd like to know what the signature means. Like if I digitally sign this attestation, this set of claims and evidence, what am I saying about it? Am I saying that I produced all this, I believe all this, I double checked all this, I will bet my job and my company on this? I'm just not sure exactly what it means.
that's the lawyer on you, Jeff, coming out.
Well, it's
These are
long
good
been my problem
questions, though.
It's with digital signatures is that you don't know what they mean. Email, people were signing emails a long time ago, and you'd forward somebody's email and then sign that, and you're like, well, what does that mean? Do I like that email? It's a little bit like hearting a message on Twitter. Like, I don't know
Right.
exactly what it means.
I mean, the purpose here is to make sure it's not been tampered with. That's the sole purpose. So I mean, the grouping thing is a definitely consideration that crossed my mind. I think Steve, you even said anything that has a bomb ref could be externalized. Question is, do we build in a grouping mechanism or not?
So Matt, are you saying that the signature here wouldn't be the same as the signature on the attestation form from OMB under 2218? That's a different signature?
Yeah, could be.
Well, I'm not saying that they're different. I'm saying it's a different kind of signature. You're saying this is
yeah, I mean,
purely for integrity purposes?
They probably will be, because they'll be created at different points in time and using different signing keys. Or algorithms, whatever you want to say.
No, I mean, the meaning of the signature is different. Like when OMB conceptualizes somebody signing an attestation, they mean I'm betting my company on it. Like,
well, the thing is about everything's about risk. Okay, that's so it's about saying that I have an independent artifact that I can use as a verifier, and that basically there's a third party. It's two-factor authentication for your document. It's basically saying I can go out and get a verifier, and I can check the signature and verify the signature. Nothing's been tampered with in the body of what was signed.
See, I don't think that's what it means at all. I think it means that the CIO or whoever signed the CISO who signed the attestation form vouches for the truth of what's been signed.
Well, I mean, I think that that's a separate notion. I think that in the context of a JSON schema, this is just signing the data. itself. If you want to embed actual person signatures, and you get a whole idea of open identity providers and things like that.
I'm just saying, if we, if we say that digital signatures are part of the standard, it's going to be confusing to people who think it's the I vouch for the truthfulness of the results kind of signature.
Yeah, I never.
That's a valid argument.
It absolutely is. It's a different purpose. So if I see JSON schema and see signature in JSON schema, it means signing the data. That's all. It's signed in the basically the brackets are the envelope. The delineations of the envelope of the data.
Well, let's take the SSDF example, right, with the self-attestation form. We wouldn't be looking at these attestations as evidence for that self-attestation. You would still expect there to be a separate self-attestation signed by your COO or whoever takes responsibility. They may reference this, but ultimately, this is just evidence for that self-attestation form, as like a concrete example.
I wasn't expecting that at all, actually. I was expecting that the goal of this project would be to completely replace that form with a machine readable form. Like that, like, to me, that was the point. Because I think it's dumb to have a like a human sign form floating around that you can't do at scale.
No disagreement from me, Jeff.
So Jeff, like what is the part which you think is missing in the digital signature? Is that the part where you can't hold the identity of the person signing it to responsible? Is that the part which you would like to have it here?
I'm not sure there's something missing. I'm just trying to make sure that we meet the use case that is like that somebody can consume one of these things and know who is attesting to the truthfulness of this.
So like a digital, I guess from a digital signature perspective, there are two things which are being solved. One is the integrity of the data itself. Like once you sign it, you for sure know that this is not tampered with when you check it. The second thing is using the signature, you can find the identity of the person, right? So you can have the you can reverse to get the public key and match it to the identity.
Yeah.
So you can,
and you believe it more because it's like attached. Somebody who matters actually vouched for this thing.
Okay. So that comes like that is like that for me is a policy decision of the consumer. So consumer can decide whether they consume only or documents signed by certain certificates, or they consume every signature, or that's a level of trust on the signature itself, right?
Right now, I think OMB 2218 attestation form requires like an officer of the company or somebody. It has to be somebody with authority.
Yes.
Sign it. And
so that's a policy decision on the consumer, right? So if OMB decides that there are specific set of certificates they will just trust, or specific signatures, right? So everything else they will just say these are not accepted. The same thing applies to anybody who wants to consume this document, right? Is that?
I'm not sure what you mean.
So so there are two parts to the digital signature. One is the integrity part, and the other is the identity part, which you get from the public key, which is used to sign it, right? So the identity part, if the identity is of a CISO or somebody significant, that's a level of trust decision on the consumer of this document. That's the part which I'm trying to get at.
I get all that. I just don't think the way we have signatures set up here is conducive to the vouching part. And sorry, Matt, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I just reinforcing, I think, building on what Moj said, there's multiple layers. So there's different identities in terms of constructing this document. The actual person auditor signing stuff will happen in some other format with one key someplace. That'll be held someplace else. When I bring that evidence or reference evidence here, I'm probably going to use an ephemeral signing key generated by SigStore, which is a completely different key. And all it means is that this ephemeral key was used to grab the document from one system that was signed, that has auditors and CISOs and CIOs, whatever you need, whatever your policy needs to sign as a sort of separate signing system, separate certificates, and I'll generate an ephemeral certificate and I'll bring it to this document and sign the data. And this data will either point to it or be a copy of it, right?
I think
I
that sounds reasonable to me. I mean, assuming we work out the details.
So do we want, I think having the semantics of signature, that the noun signature, I think is important. Now I think there's a couple ways that we can do that, right? We could describe what the intent is in the JSON schema documentation, right? So maybe we want to describe that signature can be used for multiple purposes, including to vouch for something. Or we could potentially have different types of signatures. One that would be for, integrity, and another would be affirmation of the entire thing. Right.
Mhm.
I think there's a couple different avenues that we can go down, and I don't necessarily know that, like, the signatures for the attestations are fine. The signatures for the claims are fine. Let's see. So we've got standards. We could even add another section here that is for affirmation, and you could affirm that everything that for example, we might have another section in here for affirmation that would then group the assessors, the attestations, the claim, the evidence, everything in here. That is like a different type of signature, right? It has different semantic meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I push back on that though. Like, I understand, like, say, integrity for evidence, but for a claim, where would you sign, or under what circumstances would you sign for the integrity of a claim, but not that affirmation? Like, to me, I think just by the signature and for that specific type would always be affirmation. Would it ever be just integrity of the claim? Aren't you then just affirming that the claim is that valid for the claim type as a type?
I think it depends because, I think it depends because you could have a machine, you could have an automated process and a signing key that doesn't belong to anybody, right? It belongs to a service account. And that's going to have zero impact on, something like SSDF, where you actually need somebody to sign it with authority. So I think there are going to be cases where, an automated signature will be created for something where, that automated process, it's not affirmed to anything because there's no human being actually doing it.
And that was I typed in chat, that was the ephemeral key, right?
Yep. Yeah, I get that. I guess the only reason you'd want to sign for the integrity of a claim is to make sure that nobody changed the predicate or changed the reasoning or something. I mean, it has the same integrity needs as the other stuff in here.
I was going to say this is the same problem I have. I got a whole team in IBM. Their whole full-time job is to manually edit bombs and other data. And so we have great automation, great tools, generates a nice bomb, but then they go do data fix up. I want to be able to, have them sign their annotations or whatever they add manually. And then after they're done signing it with whatever keys we, from one keying system, to then I'll use automation to sign the SBOM. So actually be three keys. There'll be the initial ephemeral key. There'll be whoever touched it or added stuff or changed data. I want to record their signatures, and then I want to re-sign the whole darn thing again. You know,
Yeah,
it's not unique to this space. Is all I'm saying.
Now, is
to-
the noun signature, is that noun confusing in the context of an attestation?
I've always used the term seal for integrity guarantees, but I don't know if that's appropriate here. It's been a while since I've been in this space.
Yeah, I mean, you're just using basic JSF or XML digital signature semantics. I mean, it's just called a signature. It's just called a digital signature.
Yeah.
And it implies you're signing an envelope set of data.
Steve, like you mentioned, it is I mean, signature here has been fairly commonly used, like digital signature and the signature verb. The part which I was referring to was it is good to separate out what is the integrity signature versus who are the affirmers. So it'll be useful to have that. Like Matt was talking about, we may have multiple layers of identity signatures which we need to hold. So creating a section for that would be really helpful.
So let's see, this would go like if we had, I think it's all at this level right here. So like if we had, I don't know, somewhere in here, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. And we had like an affirmation object, which then could contain a signature, and then the sections of the document that you are, actually, you wouldn't even need that.
So in this
I think that's
situation,
all you need.
what all would you be signing? What's the totality of what you're signing?
Right. So what I did is within the declarations here, actually we can do it simply. We can do it simply. Within the declarations, yeah, this will be easy actually. This is the targets.
In this situation, the affirmation is on the evidence, the claims, the attestations, and the standard. That combination.
Yep. Yep. And whatever you include in there, so whether or not you include just the standards or whether or not you include the attestations, claims, and evidence, then this signature, that could be, the documentation could very simply say that this is an affirmation. Because the entire document, this is where you would put the document level signature right down here. Okay, this is the document signature. And this could be affirmation, or we could just call it affirmation. Right? We could give it, instead of using the same noun, we could give it a different semantic meaning. So this, in the context of SSDF, so you know, your document level signature for integrity would go here to make sure that nothing has been tampered with, and then the digital signature of your CEO, for example, could go here because they would have to attest to SSDF.
This is a slippery slope. It really is.
What's
Because
that?
it's a slippery slope because anybody who touches this has to come with their own signing key, their own identity. It's a slippery slope. So
Yeah, I'm just trying to think through it in like for my scenario where there's say 1,000 different projects that we're delivering this on, and we're going to have to self-attest each one of them, right? The way that self-attestation is figured right now is you can say overarching process, and maybe that's all you would be attesting to here. I'm just trying to think through someone who's an officer of my company trying to sign 1,000 of these once a day as we do continuous delivery. Like what would that look like? What would the process look like?
and it becomes meaningless. Then they'll probably set up some automation just to
Exactly.
they'll vend out their key and then it'll mean nothing.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm just trying to think through the practicality of it a little bit.
You're absolutely right.
I mean,
we
in
can't
real
expect
life,
business users to have these.
sorry, go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
Say that's a valid point because we can't expect business users to be able to apply digital signatures in the context of where we want it. That's got to be outsourced. It's going to be automated. And like Matt or somebody else said, its meaning, its impact is going to diminish as a result.
It's like you said, Steve, the direction is there's going to be a group. So we have an organization. The organization has a key. And then, that key for the organization will be used. So it could be one of many different people on a given day, but the organization signs it. Then you can actually trace back, track back to the system that maintains those identities for the organization, because those change over time. And you can actually pinpoint at that. That's why you have these time-based timestamp records. You can know who initiated the signing process. And you can actually figure out who initiated the event that caused the signing to happen for that given day from that org. So anyway.
So Matt, in the interest of simplicity, I was just thinking of another model, which is just, one person generates or the automated process generates the first version of this set of claims and evidence, this attestation, and signs it. And then if anybody touches it after that, whether it's, one of your manual editors or an auditor wants to add counterclaims or like whatever happens to it, you add them on or modify the underlying document and then sign it again, like it's like wrapper around it with a signature, and you keep doing that. But if you wanted to figure out what changed, you could go back inside the versions and diff them.
Yeah.
That's
I'm running a diff tool. I'm running a bomb diff tool right now. So
yeah. But that way it wouldn't be so much about, it's just the global signature approach as opposed to like trying to come up with subsets and sign each of those. So every time you sign it, you're saying you approve what's there, including my changes. And sign it.
I'm just signing, something or some process generated a piece of data and someone decided to put it through a process where it gets signed. If someone else signs it, then you preserve the original signature and you indicate what your delta or your changes are, or you re-sign it, right? And in this case, you can actually re-sign portions as well as re-sign the entire outside. Like I said, I might let an individual change individual things and sign the individual things they change, but at the end of I'm going to go back to the organization, have the organization re-sign the whole thing again.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated.
It is. But, it's like you said, though, is if you have diffs, a diff system in place like GitHub, you have commit history, you can actually you can track all the deltas. That's the ideal system. That's actually what we're pushing for with, SBOMs and dependency track and everything, is to have a delta feature, right? That's what, we're trying to get, I'm trying to write code for on an individual basis. And that's all we'd like to see changes over time. We'd like to understand from build to build, from release to release, what changed.
Yeah.
So we know what our new attack surface is, or legal exposure surfaces.
I guess I know, Matt, your philosophy is like, give me a way to do everything possible, and build it in, and then, you may or may not use every feature. focused on like kind of MVP, like what's the simplest use case here that's the most common that we can meet and support, 80% of the use cases or whatever. And I don't care about the other 20 for now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like it's what Manoj and I think Ian is saying, and it's kind of like I know that there are other frameworks, there are other standards. What I want in the SBOM is a place to put my data and be able to put it where it belongs. So if I have a piece of data for formulation or machine learning or attestation, I know where to put it. But my ultimate my gold standard document where I'm actually doing my course signing, or if I have evidence or attestations, they'll be someplace else. And I need to basically just reference them here, give enough, much like a model card. I'm not going to include the entire data model for a large learning model into an SBOM. I'm not doing that potentially. I might, have multiple SBOMs that tell you how to build the data, but I at least in my top level SBOM, I want to be able to say, here's a good, footprint for the data. Here's an abstract for it. Here's some indicators that you can use, and I'm going to sign it, and I'm going to link you to the actual canonical places where you can verify those signatures from a separate system if you're interested. But as a first order document for automation and for initial inspection, at least I know this has not been tampered with, that I know how to transition to another framework or another standard. And if it has a signature, I know that I will use a separate mechanism. If I'm interested, I'll use a separate mechanism to verify those signatures, right?
That makes sense to me. I guess I'm more interested in the kind of I'm not that interested in the integrity signatures, but I'm very interested in the vouching for the document kind of signature.
A couple more maybe possibilities. I'll just kind of throw them out there and see how people react to them. One, we could include a new external reference type of applied signature. So this would be like an affirmation type of signature. It has nothing to do with integrity. So that would be a new external reference type. And that particular signature could be a PDF or whatever with that CEO signature on it. So here you have a machine readable attestation. And if you actually want to see the signature of that CEO actually attesting to this particular document, then this is that would be a reference to that.
I mean,
Another
yeah, that's it. I like that. I think that you'll probably end up exploring how to represent. Basically, what you need to do is it's a general problem. It's not a problem just for here. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's basically you have to figure out how you represent a credential in a generic way. And typically it goes to, you've got to point to some place where they have a system, a closed system where they can verify it. And what minimum pieces of data you need to verify that thing if you don't have a public key. Or if you have a public key like you have in SigStore, you need to be able to point to the document produced by SigStore with the public key, right? The problem is OIDC makes it a bit simpler because it tells you consistently with the API what piece of information you need to do, but you still need to talk to an external service for verification. So, but in different, non-standard identity providers, you'll just need a generic way for them to provide their, what's their service that they use, signing service they use to verify a signature or piece of data, right?
That's a good idea,
yeah.
Steve.
So
yeah,
exactly. So you could have so you could have an applied signature, and that could be like an external reference to the PDF, whatever. The other option, throw this one out there too, is we have support for attachments in Cyclone. So you could have an affirmation object with the name and title of the CEO and an image of that CEO's signature.
Yeah.
Don't go down that route. Please don't, I beg you.
Okay. I'm just
saying
two different options. I just threw them out there. I have zero opinions.
I served on the security IDT for patent evaluations for over 6 years. And every week we had a new way of representing an identity, an image, a voice, a plurality of things. It goes back to, yeah. Don't try to pick a winner.
Okay, so affirmation could be like an external reference, right? Why isn't my keyboard working? Oh, there it goes. Bluetooth fail. Would you call it applied signature, affirmed? What would be the this is the integrity one, but what would you call this, Jeff? Like if I'm attesting to something, if I'm affirming something, what kind of signature, what noun would
Yeah.
or adjective would you use there?
Wonder what it says on the actual form for, well, I know this is a
Good
general
question.
purpose thing, but I think of it as like a signatory, or it's like the signature on a contract.
Signatory. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Brilliant.
Got to be a word for
Okay.
that, right?
Exactly. Looking for the right noun. Okay. Okay, so this could be the integrity one. And this would be the legal one, right? I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, good meeting.
Uh, um,
Sorry, I'm distracted by
does
other things going on. So just so I understand that signature legal is that you're looking at that as an external ref. So I could have like an
yeah,
officer sign a document, and then the integrity would be a separate signature tying it all together, saying the integrity of it.
exactly. Yeah, so
Yeah.
all these things in here are all integrity related signatures. But if you wanted the CEO to actually sign, they could sign a PDF, whatever, and then external reference would actually link out to that document. So
Okay.
so in your case of, asserting, having that CEO actually sign, 1,000 things for you, because you brought up that case, right? Yeah, I think they could probably just sign one, right?
Perfect.
And just reuse that same thing over and over and over again. So
I mean, that's not how I would do it if I was a CEO. Like, if I got to attest to that, I'm betting my company on that. Like,
Well, I'm saying that, I mean, the thing is, like, again, I'm just trying to quickly scan through the JSF IETF standard. I mean, it has about not reinventing the wheel, because it has a lot of properties when you add a JSF object. It has like certificate authority, key ID, public key, certificate path, excluded values. So you have extra values. So if you want to have extra parameters to prove your identity that you call the web service. So I hate us putting a hastily put together set of string fields that basically overlaps something that JSF does very well, or XML digital signature does very well. I think it's more of a, don't try to define a new object. I think I like having original signature in place, maybe giving a different key name potentially, but definitely making keeping it a JSF or XML digital signature type and leveraging those standards.
at one point, I did read the entire XML digital security spec. It's like 700 pages or something. It's because it's got legal implications. The lawyers got involved. It's insanely complex.
That's good. That means no one ever complained. Let them solve that problem. You can sign your data with whatever key, whatever authority, with whatever parameters or attributes they want to use, and we can point to the service for the verifier, and we're done. Let's not try to reinvent everything.
Yeah.
my thought here is to give people the option to use one or the other. And quite honestly, I think having an external reference for a signatory that will link out to the PDF that's the easy button that I think a lot of organizations are going to go down. And as they mature, right, we would want to push them for a more automated digital first type of reality. But I think initially, especially since this is the very first machine readable general purpose attestation standard, initially, I think we kind of have to fall back to that analog construct until organizations mature.
I agree. Otherwise, the only organizations that can use us are the ones who are proficient in digital signatures already, which is probably not a lot.
I think if we support both, I think we hit both camps. They will both have equal meaning. You can do one or the other, but not both. And let's see, this could actually be something like this, where affirmation is actually an object, which then could contain a signature, or external reference of type that signatory. Doesn't this kind of align a little bit, Matt, with some of the stuff we did in formulation, where we had a field, and if you didn't want to use that field, then you could use the external reference?
Yeah, that's why I tried to create the choice field, where you had
Right.
either the reference to an object that was declared in the SBOM, or you had an external reference to an object.
Right.
And again, we didn't solve. It's like what I keep saying is it's not unique to the space. And I really don't think we want to solve it here. I think we want to. I would remove this and create a new work group that would just work on signatures in a general way, because I think that solving it here might lead us down a quagmire. Because like I said, any piece of information that has a BOM ref or has a person touching it, or an automation or a service touching it, we need a general mechanism for doing it, regardless of role, context-based roles. Because like I said, I've got people who have different titles that are looking at different parts of the BOM data for different things. So I might have a data scientist in one area verifying the data is good, or the integrity is good on some data that went into the model. So, but I think that the information you're going to come up with to identify the person, either in the BOM itself with their role, and externally reference an identity provider and authority, are going to be very common across all types of data in the SBOM. So.
Yeah, noted. I just don't know if I want to stand up a working group specifically for digital signatures and signing in general.
Well, my belief
People have been doing that for decades.
My belief is the way we started the call today, there would argue, just relying on signature, I think it comes down to semantics. Just relying on signature itself and everything that JSF or digital XML digital signature provides, it takes us 98% of the way there. What we're missing is the connection to context. So, if you want to give more hints, there may be even an extension mechanism within JSF, I'm reading, to add your own properties. You could actually add the roles, the actual people roles, the titles, their websites, whatever you want to add to add to the signature to make it more human readable or more meaningful to a human. So I'm saying,
Right, and
we're not
Cyclone
gonna-
does
yeah.
not support the extensions because in order to support the extensions, you have to relax your schema. And when you relax your schema, you're not going to be used in any high assurance environment.
Yeah, so but I think that if we build upon, we should build upon one structure like an external reference or existing structures and figure out how to provide that missing set of data in the context of the core schema, and then reuse that everywhere in all the different sub-work groups, you know. Solve it once for everybody. And I think that as you yourself navigated back to the, is it a local ref and external ref? It's the same thing for signature. If it's external signature, then I might need to provide extra information about that external mechanism. In this case, the extra information might be about, you know, this is a URL and this is the type of this URL. It's a identity provider and this service can be used for identity verification or something like that, you know? So I think that we can leverage external reference and just add extra things to the fields that we control, and keep JSF and XML digital signature where it's at, and just add the extra hints we need. But mentally, I'm shifting to my next call and panicking a bit.
Yep.
But
yeah, no worries, no worries. So it sounds like we need a further discussion on this one next week. Besides this point right here, because I want to get consensus on this next week, so we can wrap that up. I had a couple question marks in here. Where were they? Oh,
I just want to say
Okay.
one thing in closing and one final thought. And it goes back to Manoj and what Ian was saying before. As an organization, when I hand off something to a document to a customer, all they care about is the last person who signed it or last entity that signed it, right? They assume that if you re-sign something or there is signatures inside of it, that you verified them. You're the legal authority responsible for handing off that document and making the final signature. And that, you know, if they don't trust that, it's up to them to take it further. But the level of trust, the risk being accepted is at the entire document level.
right, which is there.
Exactly.
But that in a lot of cases, that's not going to be a person. I mean, we would have to provide guidance on actually making this a person. And in the case of SSDF, you know, a C-suite executive, essentially, a director of the company.
It actually says it has to be signed by the CEO of the software producer or their designee, who must be an employee. And I think it's interesting that it specifically says by signing, that individual attests that the software in question was developed in conformity with the practices delineated within the form. I don't know how to make that.
So again, it goes back to what I described. So my CEO or CIO are not going to sign this. Their process will say, I delegated this signing to the CISO organization. The CISO organization has an organization key, and any given day, a different person will run the job to generate and sign the document. So it will be a service-based key. It will have an identity behind it who triggered the service, which will also record hopefully in the SBOM.
I don't know if that answers the man here.
Well, I mean, if our process is that IBM or Google or Microsoft, you know, we produce 2,000 products and we generate a new build multiple times a day. And sometimes we do pot fixes and patches for companies. On any given day, we produce a BOM and it needs to have the SSDF stuff signed within it. It's going to be automated, 100%. Right. As long as that process is documented, we tell them when we hand them the document, here's our process. It's the terms and conditions you all accept on every piece of software you download. You know, it's not going to be that person. It's a delegate, you know, it's a delegated authority.
Yeah, I get that, but and I understand the need for this to be automated, but I think the intent here is for, you know, liability to attach here, if you lie in that SBOM, has errors in it that were negligently created, then
And that's why auditors will have a job from here in perpetuity, because no one in my group wants to sign a damn thing, and don't want to produce SBOMs because every CIO, CISO, and person is afraid to put their name on it. An SBOM.
but whether it's a PDF form or an automated CycloneDX form, it still has this, it's the same problem either way. The liability attaches because of.
But bring it back to the problem in terms of a document. All I got to do is sign the data, and there's a representation of the signature. There's some representation of the signature, right? Some standard is the basis. If CycloneDX does not support extended fields, then we have to figure within the context of CycloneDX where we provide that extra bridging data, like the name of a person, where do you put their role relative to the context.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about, how, like, especially for online forms, right? Or, you go to a doctor's office, I certify that the information provided is correct to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my ability, right? We're not asking for perfection. Those forms are basically asking for, are you in good faith signing this, knowing that everything that you know to be true is true? And that's different than requiring a perfect bomb. So if we could codify that, I think we could make a lot of progress.
Yeah, I wonder if we could build some default language into this affirmation that would, in the case of OMB 2218, they give you language, right? It literally says, by signing that individual attests to blah, blah, blah. And like, you could bring that in, you could actually make that part of the standard. But for other standards that don't have that kind of thing, we could create a generic one that says, by signing, the individual attests that they made best efforts to whatever, right? Like, we could just have some default language in there that's what the person is actually attesting to.
I think one of the pieces which actually, Jeff, you brought up is the delegation part. And like we were talking about, how is that being captured? So a CEO delegating to a specific identity can also be captured in a machine readable format. And it needs to be done once and be referenced in almost every attestation in some ways, to say that, hey, CEO is delegating to the CISO organization, and the organization is represented by this certificate. And after that, the attestations can keep rolling with that identity. So the information, there's that one information gap which is not being captured today, is that delegation data. Who is the CEO delegating to, and that being signed should chain the, I guess in this case, the liability, right? So that's what we were worried about. Like, how do we connect this organization's identity to say that, hey, the CEO is actually representing the company?
So I'll just say that I already have to do some of these things already with existing CycloneDX, not for this specific case, but I have to include IBM legal disclaimers, 3 different disclaimers that were prepared by our legal team that describe how far we attest the correctness of the SBOM. But we're using just the generalized property field to do that. And that's why I registered IBM keys to use to say these are IBM properties with different legal connotations. And I get asked to change the wording every couple months.
So is it like what you're trying to say is, it's a bad idea to include the delegation information because it changes quite often? Is that the?
No, I'm just saying it's solving a problem by creating an affirmation here. I think that this is all a general problem. Everybody's got data, right? Everybody wants to know. Everyone's looking at risk from a different angle, right? And they're not going to necessarily use So they want that signage or that stuff close to their data, and they need a general mechanism to do it everywhere. Right. I gotta run.
Thanks,
you, Matt.
Matt.
Guess we'll talk about this in depth next week again. About that.
Absolutely. This was a good conversation. I think we made a lot
Was.
of progress and we had
Yes,
a good
I like
debate.
what you
So
proposed there, by the way, just what's there and having the sort of the, you know, physical signature format option will seriously decrease friction in adoption, at least in the short term. Maybe
I'm
some,
all for the easy button.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, awesome. All right, gentlemen, have a great rest of your day and we'll talk
Yeah.
soon.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Cheers.